you have Steph Curry on the team, you pass the ball, because pass it 2 or 3 times, the defense is scrambling, all hell breaks loose. So it's a choice. We can either do that and win games, or we can shoot, a whole bunch of 15-foot contested shots in the middle of the shot clock and be a lousy NBA team. It's up to us, and we are hammering that point home.
A game-high 26 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 66% shooting from distance, a block, and only 1 turnover, all in a span of 30 minutes. After breaking news that they're willing to deal their young players, are the Warriors about to make the worst mistake in recent franchise history? Hey, what's happening, everyone? This is Swish Culture. For all the hype around the Golden State Warriors this season, something for which I am partially responsible, the disconnect between team ownership, coaching, and players seems to be a bigger problem than Steph Curry. Or is it? Are we all failing to acknowledge what is now appearing to be obvious to most of us watching the Golden State Warriors struggle to close out? With more misses than hits, I'm starting to wonder if the chef is just doing it for giggles and The back-and-forth yo-yoing of Jonathan Kuminga has to be one of the most inexplicable full-circle moments of Steve Kerr's career as a head coach. More on Kuminga's dominance in a bit. But after making a video raving about Steph Curry's potency on the floor, the dud sandwich is giving me more pause than a polar bear fight in Texas. That's a lot more than I can say for Draymond Green, however, as his disappearance in a clear attempt at twinning Steph Curry has left us all wondering whether or not he's actually capable of being a starter on a championship-level team at this point in his career. Keys to the Warriors' current state are all the above, and after a loss against Indiana, let's dive into what's currently holding back this team and what they can do to make it better. Before that, however, be sure to like the video and subscribe to Swish Culture for the most analytical and entertaining NBA content on the planet. Now get ready. You're about to get Jonathan Kuminga went from starting to the bench because of lineups and floor spacing, to back into the starting lineup because he was clearly the best scorer, not named Stephen Curry, and we were told that both he and Draymond were ready to give JK all the rope he needed to become the team's second option, an idea co-signed by Kerr, to going back to the bench and Steve Kerr calling Kuminga out publicly in a statement deriding his shot selection and doubling down his aggressive stance against giving Kuminga the leash he needs to become the player he's capable of being. Now, if that was too much in one go, let's dissect, because this gets really good. The Warriors started this season with both wings in the starting lineup. Kuminga was playing next to Wiggins, however, the team had a bit of a slow start. While they were great defensively, there seemed to be a bit of a problem. They didn't seem to gel, and all the offense we saw from Jonathan Kuminga to end last season was for all intents and purposes gone. That was okay though, right? Steve Kerr said he was committed to that lineup and was going to do his best to make it work, only to change his mind after a 3-game sample size. Keep in mind that Steve Kerr has always said he likes to collect a lot of data points before coming to a decision on a player. He likes to give them lots of playing time to figure things out. Who am I to doubt Steve Kerr, however? I mean, we saw him do this with Klay Thompson year in and year out, who shot terribly to start the season often enough. We saw him even try it with James Wiseman, who started 25 games as a rookie. And then lastly, we see it with Pods. So this is nothing new. It's the typical way that Steve does things. But wait a second. Why did it take only 3 games for Steve Kerr to put Jonathan Kuminga on the bench? This is interesting. The excuse that was provided was that JK could not function in the limited spacing the starting lineup now had without Steph Curry, who was out with injury. Steve Kerr proceeded to experiment by injecting every last non-Brazilian player on the roster into the starting lineup for extended trial periods, one at a time. Somewhere between the start of that experiment and this point, there was still some faith in Steve Kerr's method in attempting to maximize the potential of the roster. You got the idea that once he got a good look at these guys, that he'd realize what everyone else saw, which was obvious. Find a way to insert JK into the starting lineup, allow him to develop some chemistry with Steph Curry and Wiggins, then let the remaining 2 pieces sort themselves out without statistically usurping either of these 3 players with premature preliminary analytics. While modern basketball is a numbers game and a lot of viewers are clamoring for threes and layups, Jonathan Kuminga is one of the few old-school basketball players remaining in the game, a fact which his critics tend to overlook when they're praising how great old-school basketball was. Either way, at the beginning of the season, my analytics said the Warriors had a great team, but they were not infallible. My only problem was that Steve Kerr would still be able to find a way to make a mess of what the Warriors had. After Terry Stotts and Jerry Stackhouse fixed all the holes in the motion offense that clearly don't work as well with older players, Steve Kerr did a full reversion, ensuring that neither of these coaches could be in the spotlight. So remember guys, only one person in this locker room is allowed to be an egotistical maniac. So what did Mr. Ego do after his experiment?
As Steve Kerr is in disbelief, Golden State is at a...
He seemingly realized that Jonathan Kuminga had to be reinstated into the starting lineup as he led the Warriors to victory over the now second-ranked Houston Rockets. But even then, that wasn't enough. It took both Steph Curry and Draymond Green to co-sign on Jonathan Kuminga, both giving him that vote of confidence out in public for Steve Kerr to acknowledge that they did indeed need him to contribute via a starting role on the team. To do otherwise in the face of Steph Curry and Draymond Green putting up poor performances and failing to close out games or getting blown out would be too obvious that for whatever reason, Steve Kerr is not a fan of Jonathan Kuminga's game. And now it all makes sense. More on that in a bit. But with JK back in the starting lineup, the Dubs were expecting, well, to not lose. I'd rather not go into the individual details of every game performance, but to sum it up, Kuminga played as well as you could reasonably have expected. He came out flat his first game as a starter next to Curry, but picked it up subsequently, dropping back-to-back 20-point games before Kerr couldn't stomach another minute of Jonathan Kuminga's back to the basket. An anomalous performance by Dallas when they crushed the Warriors while JK was in the starting lineup was the last straw for Kerr as he pulled Kuminga from the starting lineup, electing to put Draymond and Looney back in to go alongside the newly acquired Dennis Schroeder in the starting lineup. The classic give a player inconsistent minutes and cry about inconsistent performance followed shortly. Kerr berated JK for his play against the Timberwolves, calling him out for taking mid-range jump shots with Steph Curry on the floor as some type of hard line that JK crossed. What is the point in calling him out publicly about the specifics of what he's doing on the floor? Humiliation? Was that the gotcha moment for JK going to Shams last season after not getting any playing time despite playing as well as, and in some cases even better than his peers? He also did such a poor job of trying to cover up his true thoughts by sugarcoating it, stating that he's just coaching and will continue to coach Kuminga and how he can be better. What I found most interesting, however, was the fact that he never once said that Jonathan Kuminga was a great player. He has said that multiple times, however, about a particular second-year player. No shade against Pods, but how come we can hear of a second-year player being great despite at the time doing everything that's just the opposite, but a fourth-year player who's been your best player on the floor multiple times this season alone can only aspire to get better? Which of these young dudes are you setting up for failure? Now, despite being out of the starting lineup, JK goes up against another young and promising team, the Indiana Pacers, and lights them up for 26 points off the bench and otherwise stuffing the stat sheet. We're talking about boards, assists, threes, percentages, getting to the line. This is everything that you could ask of a young max player these days. Jonathan Kuminga, however, is making $7.5 million. Let that sink in for a minute. The Portland Trailblazers are paying Jeremy Grant $30 million this year while he's averaging 15 points and 3 rebounds on 38% shooting in 32 minutes. JK on a yo-yo is putting up better stats more efficiently in only 3/4 of the time on the floor. Are we going to let that damn sink in, or is it cool to watch a player get failed by his coach because the coach can never be wrong? Do you want to know what the truth is? The truth is that the Warriors veterans can no longer reliably carry this team. When Kuminga couldn't carry it, they threw him on the bench. Steph Curry, as great as he is struggling. While there are rumors that he has knee issues, and this might even stem from him playing in the Olympics instead of taking the time off to recover, the fact still remains. Draymond Green is unable to be as reliable as the team has expected him to be in terms of consistency. While he's doing a better job in staying on the floor than last year, the Warriors might be better off if Kuminga played the majority of those minutes at the 4 instead. And lastly, Steve Kerr. Steve doesn't know how to coach Jonathan Kuminga. JK's back to the basket, old school vibe doesn't fit well with Steve's system, and he refuses to watch it for more than 2 possessions regardless of how well it works. You cannot tell your player that they should not take shots when such and such a player is on the floor. Stephen Curry went 0 for 7 against the Grizzlies and now 2 for 13 against the Pacers. Maybe Kuminga can take a couple of middies to take some pressure off Steph. Maybe Jonathan needs reps next to Curry for these guys to develop some chemistry and learn how to play next to each other. How can you expect your players to be consistent when you rip their confidence to shreds, play with their minutes, and call them out publicly in what was clearly a gotcha moment for you getting called out last season? Despite that, Jonathan Kuminga just outplayed two rosters, each with multiple All-Stars, and only lost the game because he had no help in the clutch from any of the players you chose to put in the starting lineup. Not even Stephen Curry. Yet somehow, he is apparently on the trade block according to rumors and speculation based on your relationship with your player. Explain that one, coach. But I'm not the expert here. Why don't you guys chime in? Let me know if you think Kerr is being fair to JK or if he's being unfairly treated. Post your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on all your notifications so you don't miss any of my latest uploads. Thanks for watching. Till next time, swish!